28 minutes till doors open.
Cool. 28 minutes till doors open, folks. Wait, that's your job. Yeah. My bad.
28 minutes out.
I think that's the way to go.
Can you reframe that image so that it covers the whole screen? Because we do have some dead space on the right frame.
Negative.
Copy that, yeah. So,
Same. Okay, now let's walk. Here's host chair and first guest chair. Tell us if that looks good. Okay, so camera's here. I see cable. Oh, so
Our next guest, welcome to the stage. Tremendous bass player in the bass playing family for the San Francisco Symphony. I had the honor and pleasure of watching him play Anesthesia on an upright bass. This is what they used to call long hair music, I think, back in the day. So a true, real long hair, or at least a long hair at heart, Scott Pingel.
Hey, thank you. Honor to be here. Thank you. Wow, what an amazing experience being here. This is my first time to a Cliff Burton day, but just yeah, I got bass player hands, and I also have a blister on my finger. I was working on my electric bass the other day, but just seeing how much Cliff meant to all of you, and he meant a lot to me, even though I never met the guy, and I was first introduced to him when I was probably like 13 years old, something like that, and my brother was a big Metallica fan. I didn't know who this band was, and he played this song for me because I was kind of getting interested in playing the bass. I played cello at the time, and I was kind of getting interested in that. And he says, "Check this out," and that's when I heard Anesthesia from the studio recording. And little did I know where I would end up and how that would impact me over my life, and to where it is, today. We're getting to honor Cliff with getting to play that solo in the Chase Center back in 2019. It was
Amazing.
It was really, yeah, it was a great thing to do. And it's kind of interesting how the whole thing came up. But I was into all kinds of different music, from jazz to funk, Latin, R&B, and all kinds of different things, and then fell in love with orchestra music. Go figure. But in every time period, they have different energies and different things that they try to communicate through sound and silence, and you can find that same spirit in lots of different time periods that we can still relate to. I fell in love with that career track, and anyway, when I got a job in the San Francisco Symphony, one of the things I knew about them is that they had recorded with Metallica in the first S&M, and I was bummed that I didn't get to be a part of that, and I was always asking everybody what that was like, I met Lars on a few different occasions, like for things around the city in San Francisco, and it was exciting to get to meet this guy that I had listened to so many times, and my brother as a drummer just idolized him, and I used to cover their tunes in a band, and I did at one point have hair, but I only was able to get it to grow this long, but it didn't look so good. My wife would have hated it, but she's watching. Hi, honey. Cliff and Metallica's music was a big part of my development, I guess, and just being inspired to play bass. And so, meeting Lars and all that was exciting to have that close connection, that sort of 1 degree of separation, as it were. And then we were out on a tour, and I found out that they were going to do another S&M. And Michael Tilson Thomas, the music director of the San Francisco Symphony at the time, we were in Kansas City, and I just had breakfast, and he pulls me over, and he's like, "Hey, so we're doing this shows with Metallica, but we don't want to do the same stuff as they did last time. Not all the same stuff. We want to come up with some new ideas." And he says, "Do you have any thoughts? Because I know you've got a background in a bunch of different kinds of music." And I just thought, I wonder if I could pull that off. And I said to him, I didn't want to say anything too much, and I just said, let me think about this. I have an idea, but I got to see if I can pull it off. So while we're touring, we're out on doing a U.S. tour, I'm finding all these different recordings of Anesthesia that I could find, and I don't know anything about like pedals and that kind of thing. Like, I got a lot of research to do, and I got home and I got my upright bass out, and I started trying to figure out, like, how in the world did he do this? How can I do this with a bow? What he was doing with his fingers and all that. And when I realized I think I might be able to pull this off, then I emailed Michael, and I just said, this is what I want to do. And he says, well, I'll send it to the band and see what they think. And they liked the idea, but I still had to audition it for them. And so then that was like April or May of 2019. And I realized I couldn't use an acoustic upright because it was going to feed back, and like there was going to be all kinds of problems with that. And I didn't know anything about the different effects pedals, so I had to hire someone to like teach me about that. So I went to Bananas at Large in San Rafael, and I was like, all right, somebody help me here. Like, what is he using? And like to try and figure out his sound, because that's one of the things I remember most. Not just his energy, but the sound that he would make. It's just this fat, rich sound that just hit you in your gut. And so I wanted to try and find that. And we tried a bunch of different pedals, and then Morley actually sent me a pedal, and I got connected through KC, and that sounded awesome, but I wasn't so skilled at hitting those things, and so I was worried when I started kind of conceiving what I wanted to do and how I was going to write sort of this intro. I needed a clear shot to hit on the fuzz at a certain moment, and I was worried I was going to miss. So I was like, I got to try something different, but that pedal sounded really good, and then just trying to find all these different things to try and make a sound with this different equipment from what Cliff was using. So that was quite an adventure, and I still had no guarantee it was even going to happen. And I ordered an electric upright bass that came from Europe, and they were excited about possibly having this whole thing happen. And then I finally got word in July that the band is they're totally cool with it. They're preliminarily, but they still want to hear you play it. And so in August of 2019, just a couple weeks before the show, I met them at the headquarters, and then all of Metallica Incorporated was standing like in a horseshoe around me. And it's not. Yeah, basically Lars was just sitting there with a toothpick in his mouth, and he's like, yeah, no pressure, but let's hear it. And I was like, okay, Kirk's standing. I was sitting right about where James normally stands when they rehearse. And I'm glad I didn't think too much about the situation I was in at the time, because I would have been even more nervous. I just was like focused on just doing it. And from the beginning, what was most important to me was to honor the man and honor his music, and hopefully give a meaningful gift to all the people that loved him. And that's really that was the driving force behind it, and I wasn't thinking about a whole lot else. Yeah, there we are. Yeah. That was a pretty good time. I had not played for 20,000 people before like that. Symphony orchestra halls don't normally host that. Yeah, and don't host that many people. And the stage rotated too. That was a little weird. That was a new thing for me. But man, it was a really amazing experience. And the band was just so supportive. And a little inside story. Like after I finished playing it for the band and everybody, it was like the first person to speak was Kirk, and he was like, "Man, Cliff would have loved that," and that was so meaningful for me to hear him say that, because he was so close with Cliff. And then just Lars was like, he loved it, and he was like, "All right, so do you want me?" Because I played it alone. Lars didn't play with me, and he was like, "So do you want me to play with you? And do you want Rob to play with you?" And I was like, well, yeah, however you guys want to do this. Like if Rob and I, trade back and forth. And Rob was such a gentleman. He was just like, you know what? I think we should just let this ride just the way it is. He says, I don't want to be a part of that. He's like, I think this should be you and Lars. And I was like, wow, okay.
I mean, the effort that you obviously put into it was, you could see. I mean, the quality, the detail was there. For the people that knew him, that knew how he soloed, knew how he played, knew how it felt when he played. I mean, it was correct.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
It's always a dicey thing to say, well, this would have loved that, or he wouldn't have. He would have been thrilled, because it's taking what he did and putting it in an entirely different medium. You know? I mean, we've said for years at every single one of these Cliff events, we've said how much he loved classical music.
Yeah.
We've said how much he was inspired by Bach and informed by that, and that was another brick in his foundation. So to take what he did, where he was interpreting something, and then you interpret that and bring it back into the classical idiom is amazing.
Oh, thank you. Well, Cliff had so much depth in what he was doing that it can transcend style and can be adapted around.
And the thing too is that musically, power manifests in so many ways. Whether it's Black Flag, Black Sabbath, or Wagner.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's the thing that's consistent through the whole thing is the energy and the power.
Absolutely.
And the drama of it, the strength of it, and that's magnificent.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I learned from Ray. Even though I didn't know Cliff, I think I knew a little bit about him from getting to hang out with Ray. And boy, that man was amazing. What an animal. Yeah. I think we. So I'll get to that. It's a very powerful thing. But after the first Metallica show, we did 2 of them. I was with Ray until almost till the sun came up. And finally, about 5:30, I'm like, man, I am just dying. I got to go to bed. And Ray's like, you wimp, It's like it's so funny. This guy is incredible. But for hours we sat and talked, and he told me about his son, and just what a proud dad. Seeing that, how beautiful that was, and yeah, absolutely. And just sharing some of Cliff's musical background and how Ray knew so much about music, and my family has history in big band music, and Ray knew so much. He was like a walking encyclopedia of big band music, and it was fun. Like, he's one of the few people I've ever said, "Did you know the Dick Jurgens Jazz Orchestra?" And he's like, "Yes," and they were in the 1920s. I was like, what? Like, nobody knows that band, Yeah, there was like a society band in the Midwest in the 20s. But he, it was really interesting. And another thing that Kirk said to me at the headquarters after I had auditioned for the band, he was explaining to me how he and Cliff would do these listening sessions. And sometimes Cliff would pull out Bach. He's like, man, check this out. And then he said that some of the songs that the Metallica has, like some of the chord progressions he took from Bach. Yeah, and you can hear it, and that's one of the things that I liked about Cliff's playing, and Anesthesia in particular, is just some of the motivic bits in there are kind of Bachian, and they can hear their inspiration from Baroque music.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And that was in the beginning. That came from the very beginning. And it's the same with the song we played at his reception at his funeral was The Waltz in Orion. I mean, this is. Yeah. It's not exactly speed metal or thrash metal. It's evolved and it's interesting and it's intelligent and it, like Fred said, is beyond his years. Wise beyond his years.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I wanted to try and capture that. And so when I kind of wrote, I did a lot of transcribing of Cliff's stuff, and there's so many in different versions too, like with intros and stuff. And I'm like, okay, what can I include? How can I honor him? But I want to, kind of partner with him a little bit and just sort of honor him with something that I have to say to him in the solo. And so
actually writing out what he did, I don't think he ever wrote any music ever. It was all coming sort of stream of his head.
Yeah.
So to see that would be amazing.
Yeah, I sent to Casey. Hi, Casey. I know you're watching online, but great to hear about Jesse's recovery. But I sent her some of the manuscript and they've got it hanging in this room in their house. Yeah, which is super cool.
I mean, that's an honored position, absolutely.
Well, I was very honored by that, and I still have my notebooks when I was like, okay, how in the heck is he doing? So I actually got this device where I could slow it down and hear what he was doing. So because I really wanted to try and get it right. And then when I was like, how am I going to get into this? And so one day I just was like, I was trying to come up with all these different ideas, and this is too complicated. And then finally I was like, forget it. I'm going to turn on the recorder, and I'm going to just start playing. And then that's the first thing that you hear when I start on this low fifth, and kind of evolving out of that. That was actually out of an improvisation that I was just in my practice room, and then I'm glad that I recorded it. It helped me remember it, what I was doing, and then I actually took. When he would play that solo, he would do this da da dee da 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 dee da 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 dee da da dee. That's kind of the way he would finish it. It was like a cue to Lars that the solo's over, and you hear it at the beginning. That's one of the first things I play. I sort of like emerge through this stuff up, and then I play sort of a lamentation. And what I wanted this to be is essentially like Cliff kind of coming back and saying hi to his friends, and like, hey, remember when I used to play this lick? Remember when I used to do that, and we did that? Like, that's kind of what I wanted it to be.
Did you hear that exact same? I don't know notes or anything. I always call them like harmonics. Or
yeah. It was harmonics thing. Yeah.
That was in was it the True Temper tape? Yeah. It was in one of the previous earlier.
Well, you can hear it. Some of these older. Yeah, it was in his soul.
And he really worked on stuff like that. There was a few pieces that ended up in Metallica like that you could hear him doing. Yeah. Years before that, and he was kind of working on him and bringing him forward. So.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, he was. It was a. Yeah.
He gave us what he had, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
He gave us what he had.
Yeah.
That's
And
what
it
we get.
keeps giving. You know, you see these young ladies that, you know, get still inspired by, you know, what he was doing, and I was inspired by it, and there's other people watching or here that are still
That's what
inspired by
keeps
it.
him alive.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So, but going back to Ray, though, I just wanted to say, you know, I know people probably want to get going, but after the second Metallica show, and I was chatting with Ray, and he came up to me, and he's like, you know, last night, the whole thing was just, it was so exciting, and I wasn't sure what to expect, and here's this symphony bass player is going to play a tribute to my son, like, what is this going to be? And he was like, I loved it, and he said, and then he started tearing up, and he said to me, he's like, and tonight I was able to kind of calm down and just listen to it, and you made me weep. And that was so cool because, you know, it was so beautiful to me because this is the man who lost his boy, you know, and this was his son he loved so much, and many people loved. And that was the most meaningful thing of the whole thing. And then to later find out that that was the last concert he saw. And that's a heavy thing, a very heavy thing, and but a beautiful thing.
And fitting.
Yeah, maybe.
Because
yes.
it's like
Kind of full circle.
it's like the happy ending that they speak of.
Yeah. And
Some
so
people speak of.
I'm honored to sort of get sucked into this circle of the world of Cliff Burton in a way, and, you know, and just try to say thanks.
And you didn't do it half-assed. You made the effort, and you spent the time to do it right.
Thank
You know, that's what I'm saying is you spent the time and made the effort to do it correctly.
Yeah, thank you.
And that's, you know, it's important.
Yeah. Well, my wife was like, you know, she heard me. They heard that like, don dee dee da dee, and I'm trying to find like, how does he get that like lion roar? Like, how is it? And finally, when I was working with Big Mick, and he told me, he's like, well, we had to take a pedal apart to do that, and I'm like, all right, well. I'm doing the best I can with what I had, but Kirk was complimentary. He was like, you know what? I think you got pretty close with, you know, finding these other things. But anyway, I'm just grateful for Cliff. So happy birthday, Cliff.
And we all know that ultimately it's in the musician's hands.
Yeah.
It's going to sound like that musician who has those hands.
Yeah.
And nobody's got his hands. Nobody has your hands or anybody. Everybody's individual, but his were special.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, thank you guys.
Well said. Thank you.